recently did a video on the benefits of creatine, and one of the top reoccurring comments is that creatine had caused me to lose my hair. And here's the truth, is that you're right. I have hair loss, and creatine is also linked to hair loss. So I wanted to bring awareness to this situation. In this video, I'm going to break down the research surrounding creatine and hair loss, and also tell you the truth about this topic that nobody is honest about. And at the end of this video, I'll share with you what creatine did to me. So stick around to the end, but before we get started, I'm Dr. Zyrowski, and as always, it's a pleasure hanging out with you guys. I love bringing you the truth about these natural health topics that nobody ever does. So let's first talk about the study on creatine that shows that it causes hair loss. There was a study in 2009, and this was done in the Clinical Journal of Sports Medicine. And what they did is they took 20 rugby players and they looked at them over the course of a 3-week period. Now, in week 1, what they did with these rugby players is they gave them 25 grams of creatine a day. It's called the loading phase. And then week 2 and 3, they gave them a maintenance dose of 5 grams. And whenever you look at taking creatine, 5 grams is a pretty normal dose that pretty much everybody uses. Now, here's what they measured during this test to determine that creatine is causing hair loss. They looked at the blood levels of testosterone and dihydrotestosterone. And dihydrotestosterone is one of those hormones that is heavily linked to hair loss. Now, here's what the results were. Results, as far as testosterone goes, when they took the blood samples, it didn't have any effect on testosterone. Testosterone didn't change at all. Now, the dihydrotestosterone, that hormone linked to hair loss, it increased 56% in the loading phase. And if you remember, the loading phase is when they're taking 25 grams of creatine per day. And then it stayed about 40% higher than baseline during the maintenance phase, where they were taking 5 grams per day. Now, since DHT is strongly linked to male pattern baldness because it shrinks the hair follicle in genetically sensitive men, the researchers suggest that creatine is going to raise DHT and lead to or even influence hair loss, okay? Now, here's the problem with this study, all right? First of all, it was a very small sample size. There was only 20 men involved. And then it was only for a short duration. It was only a trial that was 3 weeks long. And the truth is that you need a longer period of time to determine if the creatine is actually going to lead to hair loss. Now, here's the other issue with this study is that it's never been replicated. No other study today has shown this effect despite decades of creatine research. Now, the other issue with this study is that there was no hair loss measured. The study didn't even track hair or the health of the hair. They just tracked the hormone levels, the hormone level of testosterone and DHT. And then, of course, the biggest problem with this study is that there's conflicting evidence. Later evidence and reviews have found no consistent link between creatine and higher levels of DHT. So that hormone DHT, even though they've done tons of studies of this, thousands of pieces of research on this topic since then, they've never been able to prove that creatine is going to raise DHT levels. And I think this is important because a lot of people are not using creatine because they have heard about this one study that creatine will cause hair loss. And creatine actually has a ton of benefits. Let me share with you a ton of benefits, and then we'll also talk about more evidence that is suggestive of how creatine will impact your hair. So what you'll find is that if you utilize creatine, like I do, it's going to increase strength and muscle mass. This is really going to help you if you're trying to build muscle or maintain lean muscle. It's going to improve exercise performance, especially if you're somebody who's running and you're trying to have a little bit of extra energy during that race or while you're exercising. It's going to improve that performance. It's going to support your brain health. It's been shown to potentially enhance memory, focus, cognitive performance, and even help those who are struggling with neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. You're also going to find that it is going to help boost cellular energy. It's going to be neuroprotective, support heart health, support blood sugar regulation, and even support recovery by reducing inflammation and muscle damage. And then I think one of the most important benefits that it offers is it actually supports healthy aging, because one of the big things that you're always struggling with as an aging human being is that you start to lose lean muscle mass and your cognitive abilities start to decline. In fact, as somebody who has seen over 30,000 patients in the course of my career, I will tell you some of the most impressive physical builds in both men and women are those who have seen use creatine consistently. It's just maintaining lean muscle mass in the use of creatine is a real thing. So it's very supportive of healthy aging. So in short, creatine isn't just a gym supplement. It's actually one of the most researched and safest compounds to promote good body and brain health. And what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description below to the creatine that I personally use and suggest every single day to my patients. And there's also a coupon so that you can save some money on it. Now let's look at the next study. This study is called Does Creatine Cause Hair Loss? A 12-week randomized controlled trial. Let me explain to you how this study was done. Participants, there was 45 resistant trained men ages 18 to 40, randomly assigned to receive either creatine at 5 grams per day or a placebo of maltodextrin for 12 weeks, okay? And here's the measurements that they used. Researchers tracked hormone levels, total testosterone, free testosterone, DHT, and they did this via blood test, and they also assessed the hair follicle health using the trichogram test and the photo finder imagery system. Now here are the key findings. There was no changes in DHT or the ratio of DHT to testosterone even after 12 weeks of creatine use. No difference in hair parameters. They looked at density, thickness, and follicle count between the creatine and the placebo group, and there was no difference at all. Both groups saw natural fluctuations in total and free testosterone over time, but these were independent of the creatine supplement. Now, why does this actually matter? Well, it's the first randomized placebo-controlled trial to directly assess hair health using creatine. Now, unlike other earlier studies that I mentioned earlier, this study actually evaluated the hair outcomes, providing strong real-world evidence that creatine does not harm your hair. With a solid design, a large sample, the duration, and it being a double-blind study, it provides clear insight compared to other studies that had limited findings like the 2009 rugby study that I mentioned earlier. So here's the bottom line. According to the 12-week trial, there's strong evidence that creatine is not going to lead to thinning of your hair, the raising of the hormone dihydrotestosterone, or lead to male pattern baldness. It doesn't affect your hair. Now, here's some of my thoughts on this particular topic, putting all the research aside. Research proves that it's not going to thin your hair. However, whenever you look at maybe online forums or when you look at videos like this, you will find that there are a lot of people who report that they started taking creatine and their hair started falling out in greater amounts, both male and female. Why would this happen? The truth is, I don't know the mechanism, but all I can do is look at all these little reports of people saying this happened to them. So here's what I think could be happening. Those who are genetically susceptible to hair loss may find that you have an increased shedding of hair when you start using creatine. The research proves to us that creatine doesn't cause hair loss. However, many people say it happens to them. So it really depends on the individual. Most people, in fact, will take creatine and not have any problem, will get nothing but positive effects from it. Some will go and take creatine and probably experience some hair loss. So if it doesn't work for you, then just avoid using it. Now, as for what happened to me and how creatine has affected my hair loss, well, the truth is I started losing my hair about 10 to 15 years before I ever touched creatine. And in my video that I did on creatine, I know that people were just trying to make cheap shots at me and saying that creatine caused me to lose my hair. But the fact is, I'm a man and I could care less about, the current status of my hair. And creatine has nothing to do with my hair loss. It's very genetic. If you see my family, you will find that many of the men in my family have hair loss. That's just the way it is. I don't really care. And that's all for this video. Creatine doesn't cause hair loss. I will continue to use it, but if it negatively affects you, stop using it, but certainly try it because it has a tremendous amount of benefits. If you love this video, watch this one next.